All right, hello everyone, and welcome to the next edition of the Bison Broadcast. We received a very favorable response last week. In fact, I was really shocked. We were hoping for about 300 views so that we were, getting the information out to everybody and making sure we were trying to keep everybody in the know of all the things happening at Fort Leboeuf High School. And we actually received almost 900 views. So we recognize that this is something that's necessary to get this information out to everybody. So thank you for tuning in. And we have two special guests this evening. We have both Mr. Humphreys. Everybody knows Mr. Humphreys from the Social Studies Department. Mr. Hump, you want to say hello?
Hello, everybody. Hope you're all doing well. We really miss you.
And we also have our senior, Kayla Fries, who joins us. She is our Student Council President. Kayla, hello.
Hi, everybody. Miss seeing you guys at school.
Well, thank you so much, guys, for taking time out of your evening. We actually record these on Monday, and then we work on them and edit them, and then present them out Wednesday morning for everybody to see. We have something special planned for the end of today's broadcast. It's called a Senior Spotlight. So if you haven't already, perhaps you've been looking at Facebook, or maybe you've been on our high school webpage and seen some of the Senior Spotlights. If you haven't, I encourage you to go look at those. Tonight we'll have a few that we want to share as we work for different ways to recognize our seniors. And so right there's the email address. It's Mrs. Gadley from the guidance office from the Discovery Center. It's her email. So send your senior information, and we'll finish up today's broadcast with that presentation. First thing we like to do is talk a little bit about, our continuity of education plan. I'm curious how things are going. We started out with our enrichment and review program, and this was the first week. It started today. Today's Monday, and it started today with a mandatory distance learning program. So, Mr. Humphreys, any thoughts? How's your transition been from going from the enrichment and going into now the mandatory distance learning?
It's been going well. As many of you know, I'm an old school teacher with marker boards, notes, lectures, and being in front of the students. And so going virtual has been a little bit of a challenge for me, but I've actually found it very exciting. I'm learning how to use Google Classroom. I'm finding that I can create assignments and actually communicate with students quite well. So today I had office hours and talked to a few students and had some questions by email about some of the assignments. So the transition is going well, and I think that we're going to be successful.
I really appreciate that, Mr. Hump, and thank you to you and all the teachers. We commented last week about how impressed I am with this incredible group of teachers and their dedication, talent. They're rallying behind each other, supporting each other. I know your department gets together virtually every week and kind of shares ideas and keeps old dinosaurs like you and myself moving. So thank you to them for all their help as well. Kayla, how about you? How has this impacted your life? How are you coping with missing out on most of the second semester activities, and how much your life has changed since we've gone through this radical change?
It's definitely been very different. I've had to change my schedule a lot, set aside certain times to do certain classwork, but I've been trying to FaceTime with friends for social distancing and all that. So it's definitely been a big change, and I'm excited to kind of see how this senior year goes, even though we won't get everything we usually have. So
yeah, I don't know if everybody got a chance to view in last week, but I talked about how it just breaks my heart every time we're faced with another decision where we recognize the time has come and gone and we're missing out on an activity. So we're hoping that the measures that we're taking in our state get us to a point where we can get back together, even if there's some restrictions or some additional guidelines that we have to follow. That doesn't intimidate us or bother us. We're just looking forward to the time to get together and do some things. In fact, you might even recognize I have a tie on this week, and it's because earlier today I recorded my message for the National Honor Society induction speech and sent that off to Mr. Gerard. He's working on putting that broadcast together for the following, I think next Wednesday evening, it's going to become live for all of our new students that are being inducted to the National Honor Society. If you look down below on this slide, you'll see some reminders, some important dates. So the last day of this quarter You're viewing this on Wednesday, so it'll be in a couple days on Friday. That'll be the end of our third 9 weeks. So communicate with your teachers, get everything taken care of, and then April 27th, that following Monday, we'll start the first day of the fourth quarter. We talked about it being an abbreviated fourth quarter. It's not a full 9 weeks, but it's certainly some time that you can work on some topics and concepts, and hopefully get yourself, for you seniors, better prepared for your post-secondary career, whether you're going to work, whether you're going to college, whether you're going into the military, whatever your path is. We want you to be well prepared for that. So work hard on those finishing touches. And then for you underclassmen, getting ready for your upcoming school years. And you see down there, May 1st, our goal is on that Friday to mail home those report cards. We want to talk briefly about a couple things that might help you with your online learning environment, since this is so different from what you've had in the past. The first thing is create a schedule for your academic work and try to maintain it. You know, waking up, I know that some of you, it's no surprise, some of you are waking up at 11 o'clock or maybe even later. Try to develop a pattern of when you're working on your classwork. The first thing that you'll notice about our particular philosophy, the Fort Leavenworth High School remote learning courses, they're being taught I can't even remember. We're just going to skip that word, and I'm going to leave that blooper right in, Kayla, so that we don't have to start over. We are not teaching at the same time every day like we have in the past. Some schools have tried that. I know several universities are doing that. And the problem is with that is we don't know when you're available. We want to make sure that we give you some flexibility in completing your work. I know some of you, many of you have already gotten jobs to help support your family and support what's going on at home. So this is meant to minimize your time conflicts and also allow you to work at your own pace. And when you have access to the Wi-Fi. I know several of you, as we talked about last week, have brothers and sisters that also need the Wi-Fi. You have parents that are no longer leaving to go to work. They're working from home. They need the Wi-Fi. So if we have everybody that needs to be on at 9 o'clock to be in class at the same time, that's going to put a drain on you and your family and add stress and anxiety to your home. And we do not want to do that. We want to keep that separate. The funny thing is, I practiced that word several times and I thought I had it down, but obviously not quite. So anyway, back to our next helpful hint. Create a workspace that is free of distractions. Try creating a space in your home. I can see Kayla's in her bedroom. It looks like she's set up so that she has a place with all of her medals behind her from gymnastics. And she looks like she has a quiet place where she can work and focus and be dedicated. The other thing is try not to overdo it. We talked about, we want our teachers, our goal is to give you between 3 and 4 hours of work per day. But we don't want you to necessarily sit down and grind that out, unless, of course, that's your desired approach. But for the most part, we want you to put aside a couple hours in the morning, a couple hours in the afternoon. Give yourself breaks. This will help you focus on your academic content. A couple other helpful hints. If you're having trouble, please ask for help. Your faculty members want you to succeed. That's very clear. That's very plain to me and simple as I talk to your teachers and we have meetings. They want you to be successful. And remember what I told you, this is new for them too. They're not necessarily comfortable with this. This is something new for all of us. But if there's certain work that's not translating well online, reach out to them through their virtual office hours. That's the best way to reach them. Try to utilize that time. Go to their Google page, find out when they're available. They should be listed on there. And reach out to your teacher and ask them for some help. Sometimes you're going to need additional help, even after trying that, even after trying the office hours, it still may not be working for you. So maybe you need to reach out to the guidance counselors through the guidance Google Classroom pages. It's another great resource. They're there to help you. It might be for emotional support or it might be for classroom materials. They have resources available. They can reach out to your teachers. They can work through some different avenues to try and help you. Kayla, is there anything that you found? We gave 4 different hints here of some things that might help improve their learning environment. Is there anything, Kayla, that you have that you've done that's been successful for you?
Sometimes teachers take a bit to reply. So sometimes I text one of my peers and ask them if they got the problem or not, because a different perspective can help. And for breaks, I usually take a walk outside or play with my dogs for a bit. So it helps not to stare at a screen.
Absolutely. Cut down on some of the screen time. So excellent suggestions, Kayla. Our first question, what we did last week is we asked you to submit questions to us through the Google page, and many of you did. I think we had, I think ended up 6 or 7 of you sent questions in. So Kayla, we'll have you get started.
All right, our first question is from a freshman, Joe Askins, and he's asking, are we communicating with our teachers through email for missing assignments and schoolwork? The second question...
Oh, go ahead, you keep going.
Okay, the second question comes from Caleb Stover. He's also a freshman, and it's, would we be able to use the app Discord for us to talk to our teachers?
Now, the reason we put both of these together, folks, is because it's kind of that communication piece that's very, very important. Last week, one of our slides said communication is vital, and it's very important that you're reaching out to your teachers for clarification, for questions, and sometimes just to chat. I talked to 2 or 3 teachers this morning, and Mrs. Klute said that several of her students reached out to her and didn't actually have questions, just wanted to say hello. They were excited to get a chance to interact with her. Sounds like Mr. Humphreys had a similar experience today as well. So sometimes you just want to communicate with them and kind of interact with them and see how things are going. So we encourage you to use those virtual office hours. The first thing that we put here, though, for recommendations is the EduStar electronic gradebook. Please get into the habit of checking your EduStar to see which assignments are handed in, which ones you have credit for, which ones are missing. You're going to want to look for this third 9 weeks to look back and see where you are with your EduStar electronic gradebook and see how things are going. I mentioned the Google Classroom page. Make sure that you're referencing that. And we've talked about the virtual office hours several times already today. Many of your teachers also use Remind. They've been using this for years to remind you about assignments, projects, quizzes, tests, just different things that are due at different times. Many of your, I know in athletics, many of your coaches use the Remind app as well. So please make sure that you're referencing those. One thing too I wanted to share, we've encouraged our teachers to make phone calls home, especially if we're not getting a hold of you. If we notice that you've not gotten onto if you've not signed into the Google Classroom page for your class, we're asking our teachers to reach out and call you. Well, of course, we don't want to have everybody's personal numbers out there. So they use a code, I believe it's *67, and then they dial your number. So if you're receiving phone calls and it says private number, that's not spam. That's not somebody soliciting something. That's actually most likely one of your teachers, one of your counselors, maybe Mr. Pizzo reaching out to just see how things are going and see if there's a reason why we haven't heard from you in a couple of days or what's going on. Mr. Humphreys, did you have any thoughts on communication for our students?
No, I think you covered it. I just think that the only other thing I was thinking of is the virtual office hours that we started today are working really, really well, I think, from what I've heard from my colleagues. I also, if anybody uses Google Classroom, I know that there's a Google Classroom. You're able to chat with students. They can ask questions and you can have responses. We'd like parents to respond to us through email if they could, and students use Google Classroom and office hours. I think that that would be the best way for them to communicate with us teachers or other staff members.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point, Mr. Humphreys. Thank you for sharing. Kayla, our next question.
All right, this upcoming question is from the junior Sierra Teeter, and she's asking are the assignments that our teachers have been giving us on Google Classroom optional, or are they graded for our third quarter?
It's a great question, Sierra. I know there's been a little bit of confusion as we went from phase 1, where we had enrichment and review activities, and then we've moved into this next phase. So starting on Monday the 20th, which is, you're going to be watching this on Wednesday, so just a couple days ago, all that you're receiving from this point, from April 20th forward, will be your third 9 weeks. So those are mandatory. Those are required assignments. Now, don't get confused. Your teachers may put a couple different examples or options in there. They may have some required work, which they might call must-do activities, and then they might have some may-do, some optional may-do activities. So there might be some enrichment built in from here all the way till the end of the school year. Sometimes there's some extra things that you guys might ask questions about, or things that your teachers share that they don't necessarily grade. They're going to provide some of those, but everything that you received through the Google Classroom before April 20th is strictly what it is in enrichment and review assignments, just that. So no reason to worry about those unless it's a subject that you particularly enjoy or something that you enjoy, that you have a strong interest in. So Mr. Hump, how has your transition been? You were doing the enrichment activities and kind of making those available to the kids, and now this week you had to transition into a mandatory where now it's new assignments that have concepts that your students haven't necessarily seen yet. So how's that transition been for you?
Good. It's actually been quite enlightening. Had to go and find some new resources. Us teachers had some time to go into our classrooms last week and get any materials that we needed to help us with these things. So it is challenging, but everybody that I've talked to has been moving forward with it quite well. And yeah, I guess that we will see how the students react to the things that we're putting out there. But for me, it's been rewarding.
Mr. Humphreys, the feeling I've had for the last 2 weeks is I feel like we're starting school all over again. I don't know if you felt that way. I felt like it was August, and I was trying to get everything together and get everything ready for the kickoff so that the kids had something new. Did you have that feeling at all that we were starting school over again?
Yeah. In fact, you talked about us being dinosaurs. I think we get into this routine as teachers, the way we do things. We're creatures of habit. And I found myself, having to reteach myself, how to a different way to instruct. And as I said, it's very challenging, but I've also found it rewarding.
Thanks, guys. Kayla, I think we're going to move ahead to our next question.
All right. This one's from Courtney Stubenhofer. She's asking about the Keystones. Are we going to take them next year, even if we didn't get the proper education for them this current year?
Yeah, thank you, Courtney. And I think that's a very good question. I know that our legislators have attempted to, respond to this. The first thing that they've done is they've said, all right, no Keystones for this school year, for this second semester. Many of you already took them during the winter testing session, and obviously the spring testing session has been closed. So juniors, you've made it, whether you passed them or whether you did not. Many of you juniors have already gone through the Keystones and met your requirements. And for those of you that were still working towards them, you're done. You're all set. Your requirement regarding Keystone standards has been met. Now, freshmen and sophomores, you're still going to be responsible for demonstrating proficiency on the Keystone standards. So you're going to have to, still work on those. So, for instance, if you have biology during this semester that we're in right now, and you're thinking to yourself, we're not even in here. Mr. Rimpus said we're not going to cover everything. We're just covering the meat and potatoes of the course. Yeah, there is going to be a little bit of a disadvantage, but trust me, we're going to make sure that you're prepared. We're going to evaluate the work that's been put in. We'll make decisions like we always do about what are the best courses for you to take next year. Right now, they're working on scheduling. Literally today, the counselors were working on that. We were spending some time trying to build next year's schedule. And we're going to take that into consideration. Your teachers also know that. Your teachers are going to know that, okay, I'll just use Kayla as an example. Kayla had biology as a second semester sophomore. And she had about 7 weeks of regular school. Then she had the enrichment and review work. And then she finished out the school year through an online, distance learning program. So they're aware that your academic programming was somewhat disjointed and somewhat broken up. So they're going to work in some additional review for next year's courses when you move on to the next one. And if it's a case like biology, where maybe you moved on to honors physics, or maybe you've moved on to chemistry, or maybe you've moved on to physiology and anatomy, so maybe you're not even in there. So we're gonna put some things in place. There'll be some online things available for those of you that need it. There's going to be some different things where we might open up some additional courses and some additional seats in classes to make sure that you're prepared. So we're not going to just push you out into the woods without any type of preparation. We're going to be with you every step of the way, and we recognize that's going to be difficult. So I think that was a great question. So thank you, Courtney. And next week we're going to we're going to have the Discovery Center coordinator, Mrs. Gadley, and we're going to have both counselors, Mrs. Lutzo and Mrs. Uvijas, with us as our guests, and a couple Bison ambassadors as well. And so next week, we'll talk a little bit more about Keystones and how that's going to be impacting things moving forward. All right, Kayla, next question.
Our next one is from a mom, Rhonda Wiesen. She's asking, when will the seniors be able to receive their caps and gowns, or are they being mailed out this year?
Okay, yeah, we are starting to plan, and we're starting to plan quickly. I was informed today that our governor released information that the stay-at-home order is going to be now through May 8th. I believe it was supposed to end on May 1st, so they moved it out 1 week. We're optimistic, very cautiously optimistic, and we're so hopeful. Instead of going 2 weeks at a time, they only went 1 week, so we're hoping that we can move forward with some things for graduation. Mrs. Humphreys has been working hard. Her and I both paying attention to what other schools are doing. I've been communicating with the other high schools in the area. She's been working with Jostens and some other companies with some different options for graduation. So the first thing we need to do is talk about those caps and gowns. First of all, there's just a few students left. Mrs. Humphreys will be sending out anybody that still owes money. You're going to receive an email from Mrs. Humphreys, and it's going to have the amount that you still owe on that cap and gown and directions on how to get that taken care of, on how to meet that obligation and get that paid for. And your announcements have already been distributed, so you should already have those. And then what we're going to do is we're going to move towards a distribution of caps and gowns starting the week of May 4th. And that'll be here before you know it, trust me. In a very short time, we'll be distributing caps and gowns. Mrs. Humphreys and I will release information on that. We'll do it similar to what we did with band instruments today or woodshop projects today. Some of you, I think half a dozen of you, needed some special essential items that might have been here in the building. And so we distribute those. We'll make appointments. We'll have a drive-through type process where we can bring you your cap and gown and hand it to you. And so be listening for information and looking out for information on that. That'll be coming up real soon. Also, make sure that you realize we still don't know. The final decision has not been made about commencement. So we need to prepare for all situations. So we're going to ask that once we give out that cap and gown, we're going to have some directions in there. We want you to go home. We want you to get it out. We want you to take a nice picture and then send those photos of you in your cap and gown because we may need that. If we end up going to a pure virtual commencement ceremony, which many high schools are doing, if we have to go to that route and we need to have your picture, we want to make sure everybody's included. We want all 170 graduates included in this year's commencement. So if we don't have your picture, we can't include you. So that's going to be in your directions. We're going to ask you to take that picture and send that our way. Speaking of Mrs. Humphreys, somebody that's near and dear to all of our hearts, but especially Mr. Humphreys, anything that you can share? How is she doing as our senior class advisor with so much uncertainty, and how is she hanging in there?
She's doing great. She's my better half, and so I get to see all the work that she's putting in. I hope that all of you seniors know that she is horribly sad and disappointed over the different events that we're not going to be able to do. But we're, I was going to say we, I know that she is going to try to make it as special as she can. Besides dealing with all of the cancellations, she's also trying to make sure that we get a yearbook put together. And so she's very capable, and I think that you can expect something positive to come out of all of it.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind. I've been fortunate. I think Mrs. Humphreys probably tired of hearing from me, but her and I generally communicate a lot this time of year, of course, with her being both the yearbook advisor and the senior class advisor. But this year's been even more with the changes and the adjustments. You mentioned your better half, Mr. Humphreys. You and I subscribe to the same theory. Whenever my wife and I walk into a room, everybody says, I wonder what she's doing with him. So I think you might have run into that yourself a few times.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
All right. That was my stab at humor, Kayla. So why don't we have you rescue me and go on to our next question.
All right. This one's from Caleb Dawn. He's asking if there's any way we can put a Google form together to send out about our thoughts and our opinions from the senior class and how we can celebrate our senior year.
Absolutely, Caleb. Thank you for sending in that question. We absolutely want to hear from you. We want to hear from our seniors. We're going to continue to keep last week's link alive. The one that you sent this question to is also open to questions for seniors or suggestions or recommendations. So yes, we want to hear from you folks. We want to make sure that you have an opportunity to get your questions to us. So send your questions, send your thoughts, ideas, suggestions. And we also have something planned. Mrs. Humphreys has also worked hard, and she's putting together her and her senior class officers are putting together a special class of 22 or 2020, excuse me, class of 2020 committee. So we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. And remember, we talked about this last week also, guys. Don't forget, we also suggested last week, make sure you seniors and everybody is reaching out to your senior class president, that's Gabby Cook, or reach out to your student council president, Miss Kayla Fries, joining us tonight, for any ideas that you might have for celebrating your senior year. You know, with social media, you guys get to see and hear things from all over the country. So maybe there's something that we can put together and make happen here at Fort LaBeouf. We'd love to hear from you. All right, Kayla, next set of questions.
These are just commonly asked questions. Are we still wearing cords and sashes for commencement this year?
Yes, absolutely. All approved cords and sashes. Some people call them stoles. They're going to be used just like last year. So, you know, you're going to want to communicate with your teachers that are whoever you're involved with. So, for instance, if you're wanting to wear your Tri-M Music Association, Honors Music Association cord, reach out to Mr. Gilson. Make sure we make that happen. So, all the ones that were approved from last year will also be, moving forward this year.
Next question is about handling activity refunds.
Yeah, send anything that you may have sent money in for that got canceled, anything that we missed, anything that we're not sure of. Be reaching out to Mrs. McGuire. She works in the main office with Mrs. Montgomery and Mr. Pizzo and me. And so reach out to Mrs. McGuire. There's her email there, and let her know what you can send money into the school for, what you contributed for, and she'll work on getting you your refund processed out.
And the last question is about how are we handling yearbooks?
Yearbooks, status quo, folks. The completion, Mrs. Humphreys and her crew, they're still working on it as we speak. Mr. Humphreys referenced that earlier. Distribution will be in August, so same timetable for all of our different things there with regards to yearbook. Mr. Hump, anything before we're kind of finishing up our question answer session? Anything that you thought of while Kayla and I were talking?
No, I just know that we're going through a really, really tough time, and as a history teacher, I'm one of these people who often reflects on things that we've gone through as a country, and I didn't want to make anything super long, but if I may, I just wanted to tell you guys that there's one thing that came to my mind, and I'd like to share it with you. In the winter of 1776, George Washington's army had suffered an awful lot of defeats at the hands of the British, and they were on the western bank of the Delaware River outside of Philadelphia, and things were looking bad. The army was losing men because we weren't doing well. Enlistments were due to expire, and it came to be that an author named Thomas Paine, who had written a famous pamphlet earlier called Common Sense, penned an essay that he called The Crisis. And in that essay, he said some famous words that I think that are really famous, that are probably applicable today. And you guys probably have heard of them, but he said, "These are the times to try men's souls. Tyranny like hell is not easily conquered. But we have this consolation, that the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph." That was read to Washington's army, and it was published in newspapers around the colonies. And the soldiers decided to stay and fight on, and we ended up winning the war. I think we're in a really tough time right now, and these are the times that are trying our souls. But I think that if we can remain steadfast and sure of ourselves, I think that we can make it through.
Thanks so much, Hump. People don't realize, how much we all depend on each other. You do even more in these times. Me coming into the office and working, and there's nobody here, and I don't get Mr. Hump stop in to say hi. I don't get anybody else, any of the kids waving through the window or whatever. And so I appreciate that, Hump. It's so good to hear from you. And I know there's a lot of kids out there that are going to enjoy listening to that. So thanks, Hump.
You're welcome.
Next, we have, unfortunately, Mr. Hump, the Cedar Point trip, something that's near and dear to your heart. You've been involved in this for decades. There's parents that are listening to this that went on the Cedar Point trip with you years ago, might have rode the one of the roller coasters with you. Anything, Hump?
Oh gosh, it's a tradition that I've been talking about all year with the seniors, and I know that there's a group of us that have been going forever with the kids. I know that it's one of our last hurrahs. I tell the seniors, and I encourage them to go even if they don't like the ride. And so this is one of those things that's one of the many things that is being canceled that is hard to swallow. But I'm sure that we'll figure something out. And who knows down the road, we all may, have to take a trip to Cedar Point so that we can ride those rides together later on. I think it's just a tough time right now.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, this is one of the things that logistically we could pull off. So Mrs. Humphreys, Mr. Humphreys, and the teachers that participate, if we get to a point where, in Ohio and PA, some of our regulations change, or if things like amusement parks open up, this is something that we could consider, and we will. Trust me, we're just, for right now, we're just canceled. Like I say, we keep monitoring each day and hoping for the best. And if it's something we can put together, we will. The next thing is in place. It's kind of a county-wide theme. It's hashtag Be the Light, recognizing our seniors. It's going to be almost all the Erie County high schools. I hope all of them. I hope by the time May 20th comes around, I hope that everybody is able to participate. We're going to turn on the stadium lights. Mr. Barton, our AD, has talked to me about this again today. So we're going to turn those lights on at 8:20 to recognize our seniors. We're going to put 2020 on the scoreboard for your graduation year. And we're going to encourage everyone at home to get blue lights, paint them blue, put them on your home porches and say, hey, this is a shout out. I know they've been doing some things like this, turn your lights on for the emergency workers and healthcare workers. And so I'm encouraging everybody. We'll send out some more information on Facebook, maybe on our broadcast here. We're going to bring this up again. We'll send out emails. We'd like everybody to show that show of unity and saying, seniors, hey, we've not forgotten about you. We're still thinking about you. And here's something special for you folks. And so that's something to look forward to as we move on down the line. Speaking of things happening down the line, our baccalaureate, we're already working on that virtual format. We're planning that right now. Mrs. Humphreys has been involved with the Waterford Ministerial Association. They've already reached out to the school board and received permission to put that on, and they're already planning it. So please reach out to Mrs. Humphreys by this Friday if you have interest. It's going to be June 1st. And trust me, that June 1st will be here before you know it. So if you have an interest in maybe singing, maybe reading, maybe being involved in our baccalaureate program with those folks, it's a wonderful tradition. And so please reach out and get yourselves involved. You will not regret it if you do. Trust me. All right, next, we talked about a class of 2020 committee. Caleb's question was a way to kind of hear from our seniors and get things involved. Well, we're looking, Mrs. Humphreys and her senior class council, they want to put together a class of 2020 committee. There's already a class of a senior class council that's together with some officers. So they're reaching out. Anybody that's a senior, we want to gather input. We want to brainstorm ideas. Mrs. Humphreys and senior class council want to put together some virtual committee meetings. We'll see how many people reach out, and we'll see if we do it in committees or if we do it in one big group. We do one every Tuesday, the teachers and me and some of the staff members here at the high school. It ends up being about 67 people. So it ends up being me doing a lot of the talking while they're listening and taking notes. And that seems to work pretty well. And at least it gets us a chance to interact and communicate. So please reach out to Mrs. Humphreys. Her email is right there. Reach out to Mrs. Humphreys if you're interested, let her know, or reach out to Kayla. Let her know. Reach out to Gabby Cook. Let those ladies know. As officers in our school, they're in a leadership position for a reason. So let them know ideas that you have. Okay. And we talked about that live link. We're going to keep that live for another week, or maybe probably through the rest of the school year. So it gives you a chance to reach out with questions, suggestions, and anything that comes here for our class of 2020 committee. We can forward that to Mrs. Humphreys and her crew, and we'll work on that and trying to get responses out to everybody. Now we're to the end of our program, but we have something very special. You might have recall from the very first couple slides, we talked about our senior spotlight. These are senior spotlights students. Mrs. Gadley started this program through the Discovery Center several weeks ago. She reached out on Facebook and said, hey, send me a picture of you guys, where you're going, give me a little bit of your plans. And we just want to take a couple minutes here and recognize some seniors. We're hoping that a lot more seniors send them in. Right now, I think we have about 15 on here tonight. I think we have another 15 or so, but there's about 170 of you. So please reach out. Tell us what your plans are. Are you going to the military? If you have some dress, or if you have your Navy or your Army or Marines, whatever, Air Force sweatshirt, put it on. Like Eva here, she's standing with the IUP mascot. That's a great photo. I love it. So please, send in a photo. Some of our students that are going on to work have sent pictures of them in their work at their place of where they're working right now or where they're going to be working. If you're going to college and you want to celebrate that, whatever your plans are, we're excited for you. Whatever your aspirations are, we want those to happen. So the first one here, I'm going to hand off to, two things. One, send them to Miss Gadley. Mrs. Gadley and Mrs. Sayre have been putting these together, and I love them. You can also go to our high school webpage and look at the hall monitors kind of PowerPoint there, and you can see them there as well, along with some very important information. So, Kayla, I'm going to hand off to you, and I'll let you go through these.
All right. First up, we have Eva Tillich, and she's attending the Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Next, we have Caleb Dawn, and he is starting at University of Dayton in the fall. We have Corey Withers, who is going to Penn State Barron. Aiden Thiemann, who is attending Mercyhurst University. We have Emma Wilcox, who's going to Edinburgh University. Cassidy Tech, and she will be going to Indiana University of Pennsylvania also. Matthew Orden, who is also going to Edinburgh University. McKaylin Alsop, who will be doing Penn State Barron. Nicholas Northrup, who will be going to Edinburgh University. Ashley Wiesen, who will be attending the Pittsburgh Technical College. Abby Petrick, who will be going to Mercyhurst University. Owen Winzikowski, who will be going to Penn State Barron. Rachel Dahm, who is attending the University of Pittsburgh. Luke Webster, who will also be attending Edinburgh University.
And I'll take this one. I think I recognize her. This is our student council president and co-host of our show here today, Kayla Fries, who is going to be attending Mercyhurst University in the fall. I usually get a chance at school to say it, but I won't this year, so I'll say it now. She worked so hard over this past year and was my right-hand woman from the summer all the way through, and I couldn't be more proud to have you as student council president and leader of the student body this year. Thanks a lot, Kay. I miss you, and if there's anything I can do for you, please let me know.
All right, thank you. I'm going to miss all you guys.
All right, guys, thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. So pleased that we were able to get through that. Last week, it was funny. I had a couple people comment, boy, you made that look so easy, Mr. Rimpa. Well, I think I fixed that this week with my stumbling. I want to remind everybody I'm a math teacher, not an English teacher. So I'm a little better with numbers than words. So we'd like to thank you, parents and students, your feedback, your support, the outstanding effort in our first week of mandatory distance learning. We know it's a challenge. We know it's different. It's so much different than anything we've ever done. So please keep communicating with us, keep reaching out to us, and we're going to try and make this the most beneficial that we can. Next week, we're pretty excited. We have our 3 counselors. We have our Discovery Center coordinator, Mrs. Gadley. We have our 9-10 counselor, Mrs. Luzzo, and our 11-12 counselor, Mrs. Uvigis, joining us for a roundtable. And we're also going to be joined by a couple of our Bison ambassadors. We have senior Rachel Dahm and junior Hayden Ford that are going to come in and offer some insights. So make sure you tune in again next week as we continue to try and get information out to you folks in our Bison broadcast. Kayla, any words of wisdom or any thoughts before we sign off?
Everybody stay safe, and I hope I get to see you all for graduation.
Thank you. That's near and dear to my heart as well. Kayla, I agree. I hope we're together. Mr. Humphreys, before we sign off, anything you'd like to share?
No, just it's really, really tough time that we're going through. Hold your head high, believe that you can, and you're halfway there. I'm just telling you, it'll be over with before we know it, and hopefully we'll be back to normal. So it was good talking to all of you. Take care of yourself.
Thank you, Kayla. Thank you, Mr. Humphreys. That's it right there. You know, believe we're going to get through this together. Trust me, it's going to go fast. Try to get the most out of it. And we talk about this all the time. On the first day of school, when I was in the gymnasium, I talked to you folks and I said, enjoy every day. And then when we talked to the seniors, I said, hey, this is going to go by faster than you think. It never fails. Every spring, I have seniors coming up to me in the cafeteria, in the hallway, at a sporting event, at a musical event, saying, wow, I can't believe it's almost over. So please try to make the most of it. Reach out to your friends. Reach out to your classmates. We talked about it last week. Those of you that are involved in athletics, reach out to your teammates. Those of you involved in the arts, reach out to your friends. Reach out to your peers and form some small groups. Do the things Kayla talked about. Go for a nice walk. Take the dog outside. Get some fresh air. Leave that computer for a little bit. Shut the TV off and just kind of enjoy a little time together as a family. Take care of one another. Thank you for your time and attention. You guys have a great day.
Bye.